Hey Giants fans and football fans, welcome to the Giants Grit, your fan channel with views and reviews of the New York Football Giants without all the theatrics. Well, this is our free agency preview for the 2025 season. Giants are sitting not so pretty at 2-9, going into the Thanksgiving game this coming Thursday. It happens to be Monday, the 24th of November. I'm hoping they don't get slaughtered on Thursday night football on Thanksgiving in front of a national audience in Dallas. However, it may not be the worst thing, simply because if they get slaughtered and embarrassed on national TV, who knows? Maybe they'll clean house. I kind of have mixed thoughts on this regime, this coaching staff, especially Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen. I think they've definitely made a lot more misses than hits in the draft, free agency, coaching, all kinds of player acquisitions. So I'll go through a laundry list of things I like and didn't like, but that'll hold off on more like front office and coaching previews and views. But again, I'll focus on free agency for this video. And regardless whether it's this regime or a new one, come March, these are the players that are going to be available, and these will be current Giants that will have expiring contracts. So whether they let these players walk or attempt to re-sign them, and not to mention other free agents that will be available that other teams either won't sign or they choose to leave. Those players choose to leave. So without further ado, I'll start off with the free agency needs by priority. I think priority number one will be at least getting a free agency to hold the spot. I'm not sure Tommy DeVito is up to that. He's more likely going to be the third quarterback. Obviously, Drew Lock will be leaving, and I'll have that in my preview. So I'll put that up on somewhere on the screen over here to my left, your right. Free agency needs, again, quarterback 2, which will be a bridge quarterback, basically, because I expect them to draft a quarterback. Defensive tackle, both second one starting next to Dex, and depending if they have a true three-man line, a third defensive tackle or defensive end or a 5-tech, whatever it is in Shane Bowen's confusing defense. A number one safety, because I think Jason Pinnock's going to walk. I don't think the Giants will attempt to re-sign him. I think some other team will give him more money. A starting offensive guard, because I don't think Greg Van Roten is going to re-sign, and I don't think Josh Azusa's even going to make the team. He certainly has to try and get on the roster. And the other need would be a corner. Whether that corner could either be a 1, 2, or 3 on the Giants, because maybe Deonte Banks is not a true number one corner. He certainly hasn't played that way in the last 4 games. But if there's someone on, and you'll see later on in this video on who they can possibly take, and that could be the true number one corner, or else they'll just take someone else to compete against Cordell Flott for the second corner slot. Nevertheless, I think they are definitely going to sign a corner or 2 in free agency, and you'll see that who will be coming up. And next need will be wide receiver 2 and 3. I think they should get someone just in case Jalen Hyatt doesn't develop, because I think Darius Slayton's going to walk. I think someone will give him some more money than the Giants will. And I have a couple of players in mind that I'd like to replace him with anyway. And then another need or priority would be an edge rusher. I think Azeez Ojulari, I don't think we can afford him. I think someone else will pay him. It'd be nice if they re-sign him. I think I'd like that. However, I don't think he'll stay. I'm sure he'll want a starting position, and I think another team will give that to him. And then lastly, I want some offensive tackle depth. I mean, we do have well, technically three on the roster in Andrew Thomas, Jermaine Illuminaire, and Evan Neal. So I think it'll be a bigger need in 2026, but they got to get some depth in there. And I'd also like to see them draft some depth in there as well. As you could see, if you look in the description, you'll see a link to my draft preview that I came out with a few days ago. I hope you enjoy that. So now we'll go to who I think the Giants will release. I think they will release the following. As I said before, I think Drew Lock is a goner. No surprise there. At wide receiver, Darius Slayton, for what I said before, I think someone else will pay him more money. Isaiah Hodgkins, he's pretty much a journeyman, but I think the Giants will keep him on speed dial just in case another team doesn't pick him up. Amir Smith-Marset, who's basically just a returner. I think we'll get another returner to replace him if we don't draft one. Tight ends, I don't have them. There's no one looking at the list of free agents to be, unless someone new comes up, which is very possible. There'll be tight ends. No one will be drafting the tight ends. So I don't think. So the tight ends, nobody will be. I don't think they'll be drafting any tight ends. Excuse me, not drafting. I don't think they'll be signing any tight ends. As far as offensive line is concerned, I think we'll lose Van Ruten. I think we'll lose Aaron Stinney, and I think Chris Hubbard. Not necessarily lose them, but we just won't re-sign them. And as far as specials, I totally expect them to not re-sign Graham Gano. I mean, salary cap-wise, it'd be a nice cap savings letting him go. And on defense, Nacho. I don't even remember his real name. We just call him Nacho. But yeah, I don't think he's not worth re-signing. Neither is Armon Watts. And the aforementioned Azeez Ojulari, of course, I think he'll walk. And then Carter Coughlin, who's on IR, I don't think they'll re-sign him. And also at linebacker, Matt Adams and Ty Summers. No, I mean, they're just special teamers. And they're both 29 years old, so they'll be 30 next year. So no sense in hanging on to 30-year-old special team only players. As far as the secondary, I think Trey Hawkins, other than flashing the training camp, his rookie year of 23, he hasn't worked out. I mean, Art Green and Greg Stroman have moved ahead of him on the roster. So, and then at safety, although I like Jason Pinnock, I mean, I think he's solid, but he didn't ascend to the player that they hoped he'd be. So, and I think someone will pay him more. So I'm fine with getting someone else to replace him. We do need some depth. I think in the draft we'll draft someone at least at the very worst a mid-draft choice, but we also need to find someone in free agency. So, and now here we are and who's available, starting with the quarterback position. This is not who I chose, but I wanted to show you who I thought about. Sam Darnold. However, I think Sam Darnold, he's too expensive. His recent play has declined, and he had a bad experience with the Jets, so he might not be in a hurry to come back to New York. Russell Wilson, I think he's too old and an injury risk due to that age and his size. I think that catch up with him. He's always a smaller guy at quarterback, so now I think it'll make him more vulnerable. And I don't think he's willing to be a bridge quarterback. And then Justin Fields, also of the Steelers, he's still an unpolished passer, and I'm pretty sure he still wants to be a number one. And I think another team will give him a chance. Will the Giants be that team? I don't know. They had that chance to do it. I'm open to it. Justin Fields, sure. I wouldn't mind doing it. I don't think that's what they're going to plan, but you never know. So, but nonetheless, I have them not passing on him. Jameis Winston, I think he's just too turnover prone, and he's going to go into decline, so he's not going to get any better. And I don't think he'd want to be a bridge quarterback, at least not now. Right now, he's just a backup. I think he'll want to go somewhere where he thinks he can start, and I don't think the Giants will be that opportunity for him. Joe Flacco, again, He's 40 years old or almost 40 years old, the injury risk, and at that age, his game can fall off a cliff at any time. Cooper Rush, not enough experience, although I don't want to speak too soon on that. He might work the Giants on Thanksgiving with Dak Prescott out. So it remains to be seen about him, though. Cooper Rush, I probably should have put an asterisk on there. So I'm kind of open to taking a look back on seeing how Cooper Rush does the rest of the year. Joshua Dobbs, he also falls into not enough experience. And I think he may want to stay in San Francisco. They have a good thing going on there, so never know. Mac Jones, he's just not good enough. I think he's proven that. Andy Dalton, I think he'll be too expensive, and I think Carolina will want to re-sign him. Mason Rudolph, he falls into that not good enough, not worth doing it. Same thing with Case Keenum. Case Keenum. He's just not good enough. It's not worth it for the Giants to pursue him. Jimmy G, Garoppolo, I think he'll still be too expensive, and he might still think he can also get a starting job. Kind of similar to Jameis Winston. I think he thinks he can still get a starting job, but it's not going to be with the Giants. Not likely. Now, Marcus Mariota, he might want to stay with Washington. I think they like him there. I think he's a good fit, a good backup to Jaden Daniels. So I don't see him losing. I don't see him going to the Commanders. And Carson Wentz, I think he may still want to start. I don't think he's going to leave Kansas City unless there's a better situation. So, and I don't think he's willing to be a bridge quarterback. So now let's move on to the wide receivers. These are guys who I passed on, who came close to the cut. Rondale Moore, I think he's a better version of Wan'Dale Robinson. In other words, he can go downfield ability. I think Wan'Dale will still be the number 3, but if Rondale, that'd be pretty cool. Rondale, he could be a number 2, I think. I think he's got enough speed and just enough size, slightly bigger than Wan'Dale. And I think he can... I think they could trick teams into swapping him and Wan'Dale out every once in a while. So I think that'd be some interesting possibilities. Again, these guys are more in case Jalen Hyatt doesn't develop, or let's say a good receiver, a highly rated receiver drops to their Giants' 2nd pick or possibly 3rd pick in the draft. So, and then Laviska Shenault, I think there's still a lot of untapped potential with him, and he's got good size and he can play in the slot. He's a versatile player. He can handle the ball. He's almost a Cordarrelle Patterson of the Vikings and Falcons. I don't even know if he's still playing, but I think he'd be a nice piece for the Giants, even if they drafted a receiver high or if they got someone else. Another person is De'Ami Brown. I liked him a lot coming out of the 2021 draft. I think he's kind of locked into the 3rd receiver with the Commanders, but he may want to come over. Giants might be able to convince him to come over to be the number 2 receiver, because he'll see he only has to beat out Jalen Hyatt for that number 3 and maybe a draft choice. And my last, if none of the other guys can be signed, Tyler Boyd of Tennessee, originally from the Bengals. He's obviously an older player, but he's a reliable vet. So, if the Giants contend next year, it'd be an asset to have a reliable, steady vet like Tyler Boyd. And I think he'll come cheap as well. So, moving on to offensive tackle for depth, I think James Hudson, I think he's talented and versatile, but I don't think they'll be able to afford him. I don't think they want to spend that money. They will have some cap money this coming off season, but I don't think they're going to spend it on tackle. And a lot of teams are not going to let good tackles go. And I don't think it's in the cards. I think the Giants have to put that off until the 2026 season and certainly the draft. And we still got to see what's going to come out of Evan Neal. These last 6 games will be very telling. Another person I looked into was Josh Jones of Baltimore. He's got limited experience, but he does have some nice potential. And I think another team will pay him more that's more desperate at tackle than we are. Now moving on to the interior offensive line, here are some other players that I kind of narrowed it down to. One was Brady Christensen of Carolina. He's got experience and he's also versatile and he's still pretty young. So he's got experience and he's still young. And again, I think Carolina will re-sign him. I don't think they'll let him out of there. So I don't think that's in the cards for the Giants. As much as we want and need a starting offensive guard, we could draft one high, but I think we're going to go the free agent route, at least initially. Laken Tomlinson, he was a #1 pick way back in 2015. He's still a productive, highly serviceable player, and I'd say he's still even starter quality, but he is going to be 33, so at that age, his game can fall off a cliff. Maybe, it's not a speed position, but these big guys, you never know. Between all that weight on their knees and back. So I don't know. If they signed him, I'd be fine with that because I think the price would be reasonable for Tomlinson. But at the same time, if they pass on him, I totally understand. Royce Newman was my last choice. He's got limited experience, and I think he'll come cheap. He's kind of like the Austin Stinney, but just a younger version, I think. So I wouldn't be upset with him. So moving on to the defense for interior defensive line. Some ones that just miss the cut on who I'd want. B.J. Hill, remember him? Yeah, he was a nice player that unfortunately we traded him for Billy Price back in 2021. Oh man, and he was a good player for us, and now he's become an excellent player for the Bengals. I doubt they let him go, and if someone else does get him, it's going to be for good money. I don't think, he'd be like our marquee big ticket signing. I'd be all for it if they could get him. I don't think it's going to happen, but I would love it if they did. And now Jerry Tillery, Minnesota. He's another guy that I like his versatility. He could play in the two-man line that the Giants play. He could be that defensive tackle starting next to Dexter Lawrence. He could also play if they're playing a three-man line. I think he can play that 5 technique on either side. So, yeah, I think he'd be a nice piece. He's a career underachiever, but I think it'd be nice to go. I think he'd be a nice pickup and reasonably priced. So, yeah, I think he'd be a good fit over here, even if, we get a new defensive coordinator. And the last guy I came up was Calais Campbell of Miami. He's been around since the 2008 draft. So, but man, he could still play. He's older, but he is durable as hell. He's versatile. He's a good player still. He's an excellent player. He'd be a good locker room presence for these younger guys. Man, I would love to have him for a year or two next to Dexter Lawrence. I would love that, but I think he could still command good money. So again, would love it if it happened. Moving on to edge rushers. We need a backup edge because I think Aziz is going to leave, and Tomlin Fox was already got cut when I started this last week, and he's since been cut. So guys who I think Emmanuel Agba of Miami, I think is a veteran player. He's versatile in that I think he can play the stand-up as an outside backer and come in for either Burns or Thibodeau. And I think on third downs, he could come in as a pass rusher, maybe even play the middle because he does have some size. So, and I don't think he's going to be that expensive. Another one is Chase Young. Chase Young has got a lot of potential. However, I think he's still going to cost too much money. He's the new Jahavian Clowney. God, I forgot his first name. So I think he's kind of going to be the mercenary pass rusher that gets like a $10 million contract every year to play for one team or another. Maybe it'd be the Giants. I put Calais Campbell there a second time. But again, he's versatile. So yeah, I put him there for either edge. I don't think he'd necessarily be a stand-up, but there might be some packages where he can play outside. And again, Shane Bowen is no. Marcus Davenport, I think he'll come cheap. He's been injured everywhere, but he still has talent, and he may be worth the risk. Now at corner, Nate Hobbs. Now that would be a big ticket signing. He'd be the number one, and he'd make Deonte Banks be a number two, where it's probably a better fit. That would be great. I don't know if the Raiders will let him go though. So, but the Raiders got a lot of needs themselves, so we'll see. Isaiah Oliver, he's been a career underachiever for the Jets, so that might be a under the radar signing that I think he's a guy that can, if nothing else, he'd be solid depth for the Giants at that spot. And Jeff Okudah. So yeah, Jeff Okudah, I think he may still develop into a starter, and he's still a young player. So moving on to safety. Like I said, I think Jason Pinnock's going to walk. We really don't have that many bodies at safety, and I'm sure we're going to hit it in the NFL draft for sure. Eric Murray of Houston was a veteran player, and he could hold the fort for cheap. Most of these players, as you see, I have them on there. They're just veterans, kind of like in Pinnock's boat, but a little older, so they'll come a little cheaper. Marcus May, previously of the Jets and the Dolphins. I think he could start in a pinch. I don't know if he could still, his starting days are still around. A little bit of a sleeper is Jermaine Sherwin, also of the Jets. He's a developing, ascending player, but he may cost some money. I don't know if the Jets will let him go either. So now moving on, Chuck Clark, and I'm not picking on the Jets. It just seems to be a coincidence, but I think we can target some of the Jets safeties, or former Jets at least. Again, he's a veteran player, and he is a starter, and I think we could get him for reasonable money. And certainly, I think all of these players can be cheaper than what Jason Pinnock's gonna demand. So now, who did I choose? Here they are. On offense, I chose Jacoby Brissett of the Patriots. Why? Because I think he'd be a great bridge quarterback. He's not too old. He's only 31 years old. I think he could, if our rookie that we bring in, I think he could play the whole year if necessary. I think he's that good enough still. I like that he's still mobile. I think he has just enough experience, and I think he should be okay. So, yeah, I like Jacoby Brissett. Now, at wide receiver, probably our big ticket, or close to our big ticket signing, would be Elijah Moore. Currently on the Browns, who's out of Ole Miss. I liked him in that 2021 draft. I think he would be an excellent player. He's quick, he's just big enough, and I think he'd be an excellent number two. If we got him at number two in free agency, I think we could almost not ignore wide receiver, but boy, that would really put some pressure on Jalen Hyatt to step up his game. I don't even think Jalen Hyatt would have a chance to overtake Elijah Moore. It'd be a good battle to see, but I'd be very excited if we get Elijah Moore. And I think if we could get him reasonable, I think Darius Slayton's going to cost more than Elijah Moore. I think Darius will get more money, so that's why I'm hoping we let him walk too. A big reason why we'd let him walk. Now, of course, Gunner, I want to re-sign Gunner because he's a very good punt returner, so I still want him. I know he's injured right now, but I would re-sign him. Moving on to tight end, yes, I would sign Chris Manhertz. He's still an excellent blocker. I know he'll be 33 years old by the time the off season comes around, or next season comes around, but I would sign him. I'd rather hit tight end for the draft. I like what we got in Theo Johnson and Daniel Bellinger, and you can't hit every spot in free agency and the draft combined, and I think we're okay there. For offensive line, I would re-sign Tyree Phillips. We got him, at least we got the advantage. We got him back on the roster, so hopefully he, that he's all healed up. Who I'd like to re-sign is Tommy Doyle, not re-sign, but Tommy Doyle. We got that Bills connection going on. Even if it's a new regime, I think he's a veteran with not that much experience. He's young. I think he'd be a kind of an under the radar guy that they could sign that could give some veteran depth there at tackle. And he may or may not cost some money, but Will Fry's the guard for the Colts, I think he could start for the Giants. If they sign him, I think the Giants would be very fortunate. That's the guy that I want on offense as a starting guard. I still want us to draft one fairly high, but I'd like to sign Will Fries of the Colts. Moving on to the defense. On defense, I'd like Javon Kinlaw of the Jets. I know he's a career underachiever, but he kind of fills that versatile piece too. He can play defensive tackle when they only play 2 men down. He could play a 3-man defensive end, that 5 tech. So I like Javon Kinlaw. He's a monster. And yeah, maybe he's a career underachiever because he has so much, he's dripping with potential that even if he never fulfills it, which he hasn't, he's still just, he could be a beast. He's very inconsistent, but who knows? Maybe playing next to Dexter Lawrence will just bring him to another level. And because I think they need more depth, whether they sign Javon Kinlaw or somebody else, I'd like to sign Marlon Davison, who I liked coming out in the 2020 draft. Things didn't quite pan out for him playing for Tennessee, but I think he'd be a good backup / rotational piece. I actually think he's better than DJ Davison or Jordan Riley or Armon Watts or Nacho. So that's... I'm not saying, I still want to hang on to Elijah Chapman and Jordan Riley and DJ Davison. However, I'd let Nacho walk and I'd let Watts walk. So yeah, I'd replace that with Davison. And who knows, there might be he could possibly start. So moving on to edge rusher, I'd like to welcome back Lorenzo Carter. I think some of the other edge rushers out there would be too expensive, like the aforementioned Chase Young, and then Dav. I think Lorenzo Carter knows that he's not really starter quality, so I think he wouldn't mind. He might settle for being a rotational player, coming in for Thibodeau or Burns, and some kind of, dare I say, NASCAR package where he can be a third rusher, maybe on third downs and long passing downs. So I'd like to bring him back. He does have, he's obviously not a starter, but he's kind of like a really good backup, but not a good starter. So yeah, I'd like to bring him back. I think I'd like to hit that in the draft, that spot at the draft, but we can't afford to spend too much on a third edge rusher in free agency. So Lorenzo Carter, I think, is the best solution. Now moving on to the secondary, I'd like to sign Rock Ya-Sin. Nate Hobbs is the guy I'd really love to sign, but I don't think the Raiders are going to let him walk. So I think we just get a depth piece in Rock Ya-Sin, who I think could be the third corner on the outside and also possibly challenge for the second corner. But then Deonte Banks has to be corner 1. So he'd actually probably back up Flott. But again, we need depth there. So now speaking of depth, Adoree Jackson, I think he played well enough in a backup role this year. And I don't think any other teams are going to be rushing to re-sign him. So I think he'll come cheap. He's still a pretty good player, really. He's still decent in coverage. I mean, I would say he's a bit of an underachiever his whole year, but he's played well for the Giants when he's healthy. So yeah, I'm all for re-signing Adoree Jackson. And now moving on to safety. Here's another one. This Eddie Jackson, currently of the Ravens. Actually, they cut him a few days ago, so I probably should have took that off Ravens and said true free agent right now. He's also, I believe he's 30 years old. I think he's an average player, but I think he can start for a year or two, and I think we're going to hit safety in the draft fairly early. So, but I don't want to overspend for Jason Pinnock, and I think Eddie Jackson would be a good veteran presence to have out there. So there you have it. There's my recap on all the players I think the Giants should sign. Now, granted, this is in November 24th of 2024. We got until March of 2025, so things will change. Some players will get re-signed. Some players will get either franchise or transition tag signed, and some players will be flat out cut. So it could definitely change. So, and there could be some trades as well. So Thank you very much, everyone. If you want to see the draft preview, please check out the link in the description. I give a full-length NFL, my mid-season or late-season draft preview. So thank you again, everyone, for watching. Please like and subscribe. You guys take care till the next game, and have a great Thanksgiving. Bye, y'all.